Paula Roy's Favorite Foods is made possible with the help of Farm Boy. It's all about the food.
Don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against full-size cakes, but I find mini versions cook a lot faster and they're so much easier to serve. Today I'm going to show you 3 of my favorites. Our first recipe today is a mini version of a very popular retro dessert, pineapple upside down cake. Didn't love it as a kid, maybe it was the pineapple, I don't know. Now I adore them, and whenever I serve these little cute mini cakes, people just love them. So we're going to start by making the topping. Because it's upside down, you put delicious things in the bottom of the muffin pan, and then the cake bakes on top of it, and then you flip them. That's how they work. So we're just going to put in a butter and brown sugar mixture, which I'm going to stir together. Now you'll notice I've put silicone liners in my muffin pan. You can do it straight in the muffin pan if you wish. However, it's sometimes hard to get the buttery and brown sugary goodness out of the bottom of the pan to grace the top of the cakes. Paper liners work all right, but they do let some of the liquid seep through. So I find these silicone ones are really the best for this. So we're going to divide this fairly evenly among the 6 muffin pan compartments. If you have a giant muffin pan, and you can buy those parchment liners for that, that would be an even more impressive version of this dessert, I'm sure. Supersized, but still mini. Okay, and a little bit more in that first one, and a little bit more in this one. There we go. It looks like a lot of topping, but remember, it does seep down into the cakes once you flip them. So next up comes the pineapple layer. And I'm going to put cherries in the middle first. These are fancy maraschino cherries, I'll call them. They don't have that nefarious red dye number 3 in them, and they're super delicious. You can find these in the baking section of most larger grocery stores, and I've also seen them at specialty food shops as well. And then last but not least, we've cut our pineapple into little pieces so that they'll fit around the cherry in sort of a flower shape, if you can imagine. It just makes the top of the cake look really nice when you go to flip it. So I find that 5 seems to be the right number to make that flower shape. These are canned pineapple tidbits in pineapple juice that I've cut up. You could absolutely use fresh pineapple as well, whatever you have on hand. Fresh pineapple does freeze very nicely, so if you buy some for a recipe and have some left over, great to freeze it for a use like this. Try one more here. There we go. And they're kind of slippery, but we will persevere. Okay, and one last compartment to fill. I just love the way these look. They're so cute. There we go, all our little 6 flowers. So now we're going to make the cake batter. It's a very simple standard cake batter, but very small quantity. So we've got some butter and sugar to get us started, and I'm going to add the salt now because it's the similar consistency to the sugar. And we're going to cream or beat this together. You could absolutely do this by hand with a spoon or a silicone scraper, whatever your weapon of choice is. You may have noticed me using a lot of silicone scrapers. I love them, and I do own a lot of them. I grew up cooking with wooden spoons, but I find that they retain flavors from dishes. So if you're stirring onions with a wooden spoon and then you go to whip up a cake, you may get a little of that oniony flavor. Plus, the silicone scrapers are dishwasher safe, and that's a big bonus for me. So we just want to make sure that the sugar and butter are well blended, as with any cake. Oh, that's a little too fast, I think. All right, now we're going to add in our egg and our vanilla. If you have a favorite white or vanilla cake batter that you like, if you could scale it down, you could absolutely use it for this to make a 6 cupcake version of it. I just really like the flavor of this one. Just want to make sure the butter is nicely incorporated here. Okay, I think we're good. So now we're going to combine our baking powder and flour. And just give that a little stir. And we're going to add it alternating with our milk. And again, it doesn't look like much milk, but for what we're making, it's the exact right quantity. This cake has a nice density to it to support the pineapple layer and the lovely sauce that's around the pineapple. If you think about commercial cake mixes, sometimes they're kind of airy, and that kind of texture wouldn't be as appropriate. So the rest of our flour and the rest of our milk. And we'll just give this one quick last mix. Unless the recipe calls for it, you generally don't want to overbeat a cake batter. So I think this is good. Yeah, I'm just going to clean the beaters off. And now to fill the muffin pan, we're going to use our trusty scoop here. And 1 scoopful is just about the exact right amount for this pan. Of course, you could use 2 spoons or even a single spoon if you want. If you really have trouble portioning things out, you could put it in a measuring cup and check the volume that way. But like I said, the scoop is the king for me. And I'm just going to get my scraper to fill up the scoop with the last bit of batter. There, that looks pretty good. They're all pretty even. So these need to bake for about 20 to 22 minutes, and then we'll take them out and invert them, and you'll see how great they look once they're flipped. Our cakes are out of the oven, and I can't wait to show you how great they look. Isn't that fantastic? The sauce has seeped into them. I flipped them over just a minute or so ago. And sometimes the cherry and the pineapple wiggles a little, but it doesn't diminish its deliciousness or its look. Aren't those great? I personally can't wait to dive into one of these pineapple upside down cakes, mini-sized. Some of my favorite mini desserts are inspired by things I have enjoyed on my travels, like the fruit and ricotta cake I'm going to prepare for you next.
Welcome to Community News and Events on Rogers TV, Channel 22. I'm Ramon DeFranco. If you're looking for some fall fun, then Prue Farms Pumpkin Fest returns for its 31st year, running weekends and Thanksgiving, Monday until October 26. Located just minutes from Orleans, the farm transforms into a giant Halloween playground. Families can enjoy face painting, hay structures, tree houses with slides, corn mazes, wagon rides through a mysterious forest, a petting zoo, and inflatable play zones. Visitors can also pick their own pumpkins directly from the patch. Kids under 2 are free. Visit pruefarm.com for details. To have your community news or events listed on our website, please go to rogerstv.com, click on events, and post your event. That's it.
Hello, I'm Liz Dowdswell, Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. In 2008, carbon monoxide, a deadly invisible gas, killed an entire family in our province. That tragedy led to a new law requiring homes with potential CO sources to have alarms. John Gignac's family members passed away that day, and he shares his story to save others.
Please make sure you have working CO alarms in your home. Protect your family today.
Paula Roy's Favorite Foods is made possible with the help of Farm Boy. It's all about the food.
Have you ever struggled to open a jar? I know it happens to me all the time. I heard about a great trick that really works. Take the jar, bang on the bottom, and you want to break the vacuum seal. How easy is that? My next small cake is inspired by a popular Italian dessert. I won't even try to pronounce the name, but it's basically a ricotta and jam filled cake with crumble crust on the bottom and on the top. It's so good. So we're going to start by making our crumble crust. You'll notice I've prepared these mini springform pans. I love them, use them all the time. They're, just about the size of your palm, I'll say. Well worth an investment if you're interested in baking in small format. Otherwise, you could use a smaller square mini loaf pan, whatever you have really. So we have got some flour in here. We're going to add some baking powder. This is for our crumble layer, as I mentioned at the beginning. Some white sugar, some almond flour, which is a nice touch for flavor and for texture. You could absolutely use gluten-free flour for this recipe. In fact, I think it would be just as good. You wouldn't even notice the difference. And then almond flour is, of course, naturally gluten-free. Now we're going to add some melted butter. And our last item for the crumble topping is going to be half a beaten egg. I scaled this recipe down, so that's why it's half an egg. But the good news is the other half gets used for the filling. So we're just going to beat up this room temperature egg. And then we're going to measure out 2 tablespoons, or thereabouts. I was at a cooking school in Italy for a week a number of years ago, and I watched them make a cake batter on the counter without the benefit of a bowl. They just dumped the flour on the counter and started adding in the eggs and so on. It blew my mind. So I know that Italian cake making is just like pasta making or bread making, where you have to trust your instincts and go by feel a little bit. That's looking really good. And so now what we're going to do is scoop out half a cup of the mixture, because that's going to be the topping for our cakes. A little bit more. I'm compressing it a little so I won't fill it quite to the top. And then we're going to put the rest into our mini pans. And I'm just kind of dividing it by sight here. And we'll scoop it in and then we'll press it down. These cakes happen to freeze beautifully, so if it's something that you're interested in serving, let's say for a dinner party, you could make them ahead of time, obviously, and if you only have 2 pans, you could make the cakes in batches. So never fear if you don't have as many pans as you would like. I find half a cake is a good serving, but to each his own. I know my husband would happily eat a whole cake and then some. So we're just going to press this down into the bottom of the pan to form our base layer. Just a little closer, make it easier. And you don't need to compact it super tight, just enough to cover the bottom. I have greased the sides of my pan, and I've also put parchment in the bottom just because it makes it easier to lift the cake out when it's finished. And unlike some cakes with crumble crust, you don't have to pre-bake this bottom layer. The rest of the filling is so light that it doesn't deter the bottom from baking properly. There we go. I'm just going to steal a couple bits here to fill in a few little holes. There we go. I think my bottoms are nicely covered. So now we're going to make the ricotta filling. So of course we have ricotta. I like the quite smooth ricotta for this purpose. but you can use whatever you wish. If you buy a container of ricotta for a dish like this and you don't use it all, freezes just great. You may just need to drain off a little bit of moisture when you thaw it. White sugar, the rest of our beaten egg, and just a few drops each of almond and vanilla extract. And I'm going to be brave and free pour it. Not recommended when baking with children for obvious reasons. There we go. Okay, we'll give this a stir, and then we'll spread that on top of our crumble crust. There we go. Try and do this backwards so you get a better view. And again, just try and divide it reasonably evenly. Like I said, if they can mix a cake on the counter, they're not going to get fussed about measuring that it's exact. That looks pretty good to me. So we'll spread that out. And then the last thing to go on top before the other crumble layer is some raspberry jam. The raspberry and almond combo is really good. I'm beating it just to make it a little easier to spread. So this is seedless raspberry jam, which is my preference. And again, just sort of dividing it reasonably evenly between the two cakes. And don't worry if it doesn't spread all the way to the sides, it will spread as it cooks. Or there. And we'll just push it around a little bit to get it a little closer to the edges. Okay, and then we've got our reserved crumble topping. And the easiest way to get this onto the cakes is with your fingertips. It's kind of clumpy, as you can see, and it's just too hard to do it with spoons. So I like to break it apart with my fingers and then just scatter it on the top. And it's recommended that a little bit of the raspberry jam peeks through, so don't feel as though you have to cover it completely. Okay, I'm happy with that. So we're going to slide these into the oven. I've put them on a pan only because it makes it easier to handle. The little tins are very hard to manage with oven mitts on, so this way you've got something easy to hang on to. Into the oven it goes, and I'll show you what they look like when they're done in just a few minutes. 30 minutes of baking time, and our cakes are out of the oven. They do need a few minutes to cool in the pan before you can release them, but oh my gosh, they look so delicious. I can see that raspberry jam peeking through. The crumble top is golden, and it's going to taste just great.
I love making full-size cheesecakes, but find them way too dangerous when feeding a small group, as the leftovers seem to tempt me relentlessly afterwards. My solution is this fun mini version coming up next.
Welcome to Community News and Events on Rogers TV, Channel 22. I'm Ramon DeFranco. Blissful Garden Bouquets in Ottawa spreads kindness through flowers, creating fresh, seasonal bouquets for seniors, hospice patients, and vulnerable individuals. This registered charity has distributed over 1,500 bouquets assembled by dedicated volunteers, partnering with 9 local care facilities, including Briere Hospital and Carleton Lodge. They bring joy and human connection to recipients. More than flowers, each arrangement fosters hope and community spirit. Find out how you can support this caring group by visiting blissfulgardenbouquets.org. To have your community news or events listed on our website, please go to rogerstv.com, click on events, and post your event. That's it.
The human brain. It can still leave us completely mystified. Do you see something?
Hidden cameras are all over the place.
She's experiencing Truman Show syndrome. The patient has no control over his own arm.
Says here he's non-speaking.
Non-speaking is just a symptom of something bigger. Question is what?
I know you're not a real doctor.
You're right. I just play one on TV.
This week on Canada Files, Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of artificial intelligence. He won the Nobel Prize for Physics for his research on how computers think like humans.
Paula Roy's Favorite Foods is made possible with the help of Farm Boy. It's all about the food.
If you like the recipes that I'm showcasing on Paula Roy's Favorite Foods on Rogers TV, I invite you to check out my website, Constantly Cooking. There you'll find over 1,200 tried and tested recipes that are sure to appeal to both new and serious cooks alike. I don't know about you, but I love cheesecake. The only problem I have with cheesecake is if I make a full-sized one, it winks at me from inside the fridge and I just keep slicing away at it. My solution is these tiny little perfect mini cheesecakes, 1 or 2 bites, and they don't linger, so they're just great. So we're gonna make a classic cheesecake batter, and then I'll show you how to plate them in a way that's just so simple and so delicious and pretty. So I've lined my muffin pan with paper liners. It just makes it a lot easier to get the cheesecakes in and out. There's really no way to get them out of the bare naked pan. If you think you wanna make a lot of mini cheesecakes, they sell these fantastic little cheesecake pans with removable bottoms. I love them and I use them all the time. I even do savory cheesecakes in them, and when the cheesecake is cooked, you just push up from the bottom and your cheesecake slides right out. So something to consider at bigger kitchen supply stores, I'll say, and I'm sure they probably have them online as well. So to make our cheesecake batter, we of course have cream cheese because that's pretty standard. And to that, we're going to add some sugar. And we'll give that a beat before we add in our other ingredients. It's helpful if the cream cheese is at room temperature. If you forget to take it out of the fridge, you can very carefully microwave it for about 10 seconds on medium power, and that will soften it enough to make it beatable. So you want to look for the pieces of cream cheese to be pretty small, kind of 1.5 centimeters, 2 centimeters, 1/2 inch, that kind of thing. And then you can get ready to add in the other ingredients. Okay, now this is starting to pull back together. It's great. It's really well blended. So we've got an egg. I'm just going to give it a quick beat to help it incorporate faster. We've got a little bit of flour, which isn't always in cheesecakes, but I find it gives them a really nice texture. Gluten-free flour would be fantastic here. A little bit of vanilla for flavor. Another flavored extract like coconut or almond would be really great in there as well. I'd stay away from something like a peppermint. I don't think that would work. And a little bit of sour cream. Again, it's a texture thing. I find an all cream cheese and egg cheesecake is just too rich for my tastes. So we'll beat this up until it's nicely blended. I grew up eating the cheesecakes that used to be made in the 60s and 70s in a rectangular Pyrex glass pan, and I don't know what was in the filling. It was a graham cracker crust, cheesecakey filling, and then a can of cherry pie filling on top. And if you were an eater in that era, chances are you had that as well. I like this version better. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. I'm happy with that. The little few lumps of cream cheese that are there will melt as they bake. So now we're going to just wipe down the edges of the bowl, and then we're going to carefully transfer it into our 4 prepared pans. This could be death-defying with just this little scooper, but I think I can do it. try and make them fairly even so they'll cook evenly. You could make a larger proportion of this mixture if you wanted bigger cheesecakes or more of them, but I scaled it to be a 1 egg quantity, so that's why we're getting these 4 little ones. A little bit more in this one, and I think they're pretty even, maybe a bit more in this one. So they don't take long to bake, and you'll notice that there's no crust on them. You're probably thinking, did she forget that? I'm going to show you a great tip once they come out of the oven, so stay tuned. All right, our cheesecakes are out of the oven. Baking time will depend on how thick they are, depending on the pan you've used, anywhere from 22 to 28 minutes or so. You want to just jiggle the pan, and when the centers are barely wiggling, then you know that they're done. You don't want them to be dry, but you also don't want them to be undercooked. So then they need to cool in the pan for at least half an hour. I find it speeds things up if I get them 15 minutes on the counter, put the pan right in the oven. Otherwise, until the cheesecakes are firm from the fridge, you won't be able to peel the paper wrappers off. So that's my story. Now for the crust, as I mentioned, yes, you could pack a little bit of crust in that muffin tin and so on, but a chef taught me this great trick, which is to perch the cheesecake on a cookie. Why not? So these are my molasses ginger cookies. I'll be showing you how to make those in episode 10 of this season. And look at that, it's the perfect base for a little mini cheesecake. You could use your favorite homemade cookie, or store-bought cookies would be just fine as well. I think I'm going to just move one to the side here so I can show you the rest of the plating. I've made a salted caramel sauce, super easy to make. You can find the recipe on my website, constantlycooking.com. And it's just sugar that is melted with a tiny bit of water, and once it starts to turn golden brown and caramelize, then you add in some heavy cream, cook that, and put in a little vanilla at the end and some salt. So really, really easy. And just drizzle it over top of the cheesecakes, and they look so, so, so delicious. The sauce keeps in the fridge for quite a while, so you could make a bigger batch and use it for several desserts, and you can also freeze it. I'm tempted to put on a lot more, but I think that's probably enough. There we go. So now we have our mini cheesecakes with salted caramel topping, and they're going to taste so good.
As you can see from the plates on display here, desserts don't have to be big in size to be appealing. After a full meal, many people would likely be very happy to sample a mini treat, like these small pineapple upside-down cakes, mini ricotta raspberry crumble cakes, or tiny cheesecakes with salted caramel. The perfect sweet finish.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Are you a passionate content creator ready to expand your audience reach? Do you have unique stories, captivating hobbies, or special interests